So I found out
down.
later on just how devastating
Children
the
decided
sunset
it was time for mother and father.
Thanks.
If you want, I'll jump in from there.
And
Well,
are you all set, Georgia?
All set.
All right. Go.
I will talk to you a little bit about who I am because I was invited to come and you've heard that said a few times. And I also kind of want to hear your names once. And the reason why is because when I look at this board, I'll be honest, you're going to hear a lot about the Mid-Coast today. I'm originally from Thomaston, Maine. I grew up in Thomaston. I always tell people that my school colors were black and white bars, and they're like, my school number in soccer was 25-3. They're like, what? No. But it's funny. I actually took a girlfriend once at UMaine. I took her around town to show her Thomaston, Maine, and my parents lived on Sunset Street. It's on Sunrise Terrace. And we get up to the top of the hill, and it's this little ranch house. And she said, Ryan, I've taken you all around town. You've taken me all around town. I haven't seen the prison. I said, turn around. The prison sits right on the skyline of where my parents' house is. It's not there anymore, but it sat right there. If you're familiar with the road that goes to Cushion, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm from Thomaston, Maine, and I love the Mid-Coast. However, I've worked in this district since 2006, and I tear up saying this because I'm kind of an emotional guy, but I am Gorham now, and I really live Gorham through and through. And I've had a lot of, I look at this board, and I know every name on that board. I may not know them personally, but I know every family name there.
Oh,
And
wow.
and I know, and I bet you I could make connections to them all. And so my thought is I could probably make connections with you all too, which I just think is great. So if you don't mind, just go around the room and tell me who you are, and if you got a connection to the high school, don't be afraid to shout it out.
Gail Trudeau.
Gail Trudeau?
Yeah.
Gail?
Both my nieces graduated from Gorham.
Were they Trudeaus?
No, they were Dunhams.
All right.
Hillary and Laura.
Yeah, sure, right.
Lisa Becker.
Lisa
Russell
Becker.
Peter.
Yeah. Pam Tiffany, Laura Ryan, and Rob Roy.
That's right. I work with her kids. I love them. Her daughter keeps me so organized because I'm, a mess when it comes to organization. Vic Newart. Oh, all right, nice.
I'm Joanne Anderson. I'm not from this area. But
Neither. I'm a transplant, but I bleed this place now. Yeah.
Tom Pryor, I'm also relatively new.
Yeah, Tom Pryor.
Terry Jennings, I'm companion to be here, but I'm from Algonquin.
I'll take it.
And all the us attended Gorham High School,
Uh-huh.
and we thought it was wonderful.
Yeah.
Her name is B.
B.
B, yeah, Sue, Dave, and Jim, if you ever want to play golf, let me know.
Will do. B, what's your last name?
Ott, O-T-T.
Oh, yeah, I see that name all over the high school. Yeah, all
Oh,
right.
yes.
Very nice.
Right.
I'm Jane Moody. I am not related to Sean or any of the Moodys.
I'm not telling you my political leanings. I am Jane Moody.
I'm a transplant from Massachusetts. I came to Gorham 11 years ago, and I love Gorham.
Yeah. I was in a group of Maine leaders in education recently, and in the Maine Chamber of Commerce, the leader of that was saying, we have to change the I'm a transplant and really, and I actually think, you know what, let's celebrate being from away because it's worth it. I think there's so much that we need to do to add to our town, and I love the diversity that can come in here. So I think we should more celebrate. They were like, how do we get rid of that stigma? I said, how about we celebrate it?
Yeah.
Being from away.
I'm Tony Helming, and I came from Connecticut.
Oh, it came from, see, we had a bunch of people from away. And I say be from away. I talked to you briefly that I obviously am from the Mid-Coast originally, and I'll start to talk about the scavenger hunt here in a minute. I do work now at Gorham High School. I started in 2006. Last year, 3 years ago this October, I moved to Gray Road, 18 Gray Road, which is fourth house on the left if you turn down Gray Road. I live next to Vivian Truworthy. Trustworthy. Trueworthy. I'm going to get her name wrong. Worthy. Oh, it was Worgy. Was it? Oh, it was. See, when she pronounced it to me, I just didn't.
Trueworthy, that's a super,
Yeah.
super old name.
Yeah.
for
So lucky to have met her. She was beautiful woman, a wonderful house, loved her kids. So blessed to be able to meet her before she passed on. It was just, she had the funniest stories. She had Maine humor in spades. She was hilarious. So that's a whole different thing. So we moved down to, my wife and I, we moved to Gray Road in Gorham, and which really just solidified my relationship with this town anyways, having worked here since 2006, and I love living in town. I get to walk up here if I want to raise a little cane, and I can walk home, and it's just a blast. So I end up walking to work.
By Johnson Road, where half of my people.
Yeah, I live next to, right, yeah, and we, yeah. So if you see me walk by, everybody's taking to beeping as they go by. So sometimes, it's quite, Mr. Roy beeps every morning he goes by. Rob Roy will beep every morning to let him know. Yep. So when he doesn't beep, my wife is like, was Rob at work today? So she really checks in on it. So I came to bother you today. And at the end of this, I'll answer any questions. I'll answer any questions about the high school. I'm very passionate about our kids. I'll talk about that. And I'll also talk about what Jeannie and I do in the summer. My wife, Jeannie and I, we were married in 2003, and we like to have adventures. She works in education. She's a special education teacher over in Wyndham. I always say you'd have to be a special education teacher to be married to me. I'm a mess. So it takes like that kind of patience to be married to me. And she'd be like, yeah, that's true. They have been very busy the last couple of weeks, so she was not able to come today. But, it's funny, when we got married, I said to her, listen, we can have kids, but we got to talk about it. And she goes, no, I'm good. We have kids all day long. She works with kids 6 hours a day. I'm blessed enough to see kids every day. So our version of kids are these guys right here. So on our adventures, you see, this is Daisy. These are all mixed mutts. I couldn't even tell you what they are. And this is Rosie. Daisy's 11. She acts like she's 3. Rosie's 3. So they get along quite well. No, Rosie's 1. Sorry, she just turned 1. And last year, because the story I'm going to tell you about the scavenger hunt was from last year into this year. This was a dog that we had for 14 years. And her name was Maddie, and she was beautiful. And she followed us on a lot of adventures. So she passed away in October of last year, but she was a cool, cool dog. So that's Jeannie, that's my family, and that's who we are. So I'll take you through some of these. If you're not, it might be the best slide. If you're not familiar, and I'm going to pass these around, 2 years ago, they just finished their second scavenger hunt. DownEast magazine started a scavenger hunt. They picked 40 places in Maine for you to visit. And if you visited all those places, then you would, you get featured in the magazine, you get a little, you'd get a free poster and a pleasant card. So I got this framed little thing so we dug into this. Family have always given us a subscription to DownEast magazine, and we love it, and we got it. Let's do some of these. Now, we're both teachers, or we work, so I don't have as much time off as she does in the summertime as an administrator, but I have some, and she has more time off. And so we decided to dig into this a little bit. The first year, we just picked a category, and we picked food and booze, because I love, this is great when my kids watch this on TV, because I love food and booze. So we did the food and booze. It's very accessible, the first one we did. Anybody could do the one that we did initially, which is why I really liked it. So that's the category we did year 1. And I'll get into year 2 when we get there, but I'll show you what we did year 1. We completed that one subsection of the 40. It was 8 different spots. And so if you actually finished one part of it, you got this. If you completed the whole darn thing, you got a free subscription and all kinds of crazy stuff. But That's what we got. So I'll pass that around so you guys can check that out. So our first stop was up in Puzzle Mountain, or they call it Puzzle Mountain. And it's a bakery. It's a roadside bakery up near Newry. And we get up there and everything's bear proof because seriously there are bears up there that'll come grab your stuff. And along with this scavenger hunt, I'll pass these around too in a minute, but along with the scavenger hunt, you had to take a selfie in front of all the different tasks. It all involved a selfie of you. So Jeannie, and in this selfie, you had to act like a bear. Ah. So this is actually the picture that made the magazine. We're so happy about that. Jeannie was like, seriously? We submitted dozens of these things. So this is the one that made the magazine. And here's a picture of the bakery. We picked up some cookies there that were phenomenal. But literally just pull over and you know pay it, and just like any other farm stand you see on the side of the road, throw the money in a bucket and take what you're grabbing. I'm going to pass this around. It's bookmarked to page 50 where you can see a little picture of us. And you can kind of flip through as you want. So I'll send two of those around just in case you want to see those. You know, in education, you're not supposed to send that stuff out until after you've done your presentation, but I'll trust you. So there's Jeannie and I at the bakery. I put it first because, and I'll probably go out of order for the rest of this darn thing, but this was our first stop. She was like, let's drive up to Newry. Okay. We are staycationers. I say that a lot. Have you ever heard that term? We don't leave Maine a lot because, you know, as lucrative as being a teacher is, you know, we are rich from this work. We decided to stay here. No, it's affordable. It's affordable. And I think I could do this for the next 40 years and never see all of Maine. So I really love this place. So there's us at Puzzle Mountain, acting like bears. I talked to you earlier about, we get to the booze part. This is my favorite part. Jeannie's is the food. Mine is the other stuff. Yeah, don't tell the kids. I talked to you guys briefly about where I was from, Thomaston, Maine. I love Mid-Coast Maine. I grew up on Mid-Coast Maine. I worked in Rockland. I worked in Camden. All my friends and girlfriends were from, St. George, Tenants Harbor, Port Clyde, those areas. Monhegan Island has a kind of a space in my heart. Because another thing you'll learn about me is I love art. To learn that piece of artwork back there came from an artist here, I love it. And Monhegan, if you've never been out there, is a wonderful artist colony. This is a trip to Old Maine if you've never been here. You go down to Port Clyde. Port Clyde, there's a general store down there called Port Clyde General Store. And if you could easily make this trip. If you're gonna go down there, they've got old wood floors. They've got a beautiful little, you can eat down there. You can buy gas down there. But it's gorgeous. Tiny little roads. And you grab the ferry from there. You can grab it from other parts in Maine, but the ferry you want to go on is seriously out of Port Clyde. You need to see that if you haven't. I'm probably going to say that about everywhere I talk about in the Mid-Coast. But this is a picture, I'll show you another picture of Monhegan, but there are some iconic pictures of Monhegan, and this is definitely one of them. So we went out to Monhegan to go to a brewery, Monhegan Brewing Company. We were out 2 or 3 years ago, and they just hadn't opened the door yet to this brewery, so we're really excited to go back to see this place because my wife and I are, in our travels, we like to go see the craft beer people too. So that's really popular right now. So that's Monhegan. Funny story that my mother would not want me to tell you. There's another picture of Monhegan, another their famous lighthouse picture. I think there's an Andy Wyeth picture or Jamie Wyeth picture, a art piece of work by them. Port Clyde, I'll just skip back to that, has a beautiful Wyeth museum or a gallery above that Port Clyde General Store, thanks to Linda Bean. And this is, you can't see it, but the top cove up there, right here, is the island in front of, that's Hupper's Island in front of Port Clyde, and that's the ferry and that's Monhegan. So I think it's 13 miles, 12 miles. Go in the morning, see the Lorby. That's what you gotta do. Quick story about my mother. So I take my mother out there. We decide that we're going to go. My mom is 70. So we decide we're going to go out to Monhegan. This was not this trip, but was the one before. And I wanted to hike it. I hiked it as a youth. There's beautiful hiking trails on Monhegan, and I thought it was an easy one. So we go out to Monhegan. It's wet. My mom's got Crocs on. I can't get her out of her Crocs. I'm like, Mom, wear some shoes that are sensible for hiking. She will not get out of her Crocs. So she's got Crocs on. We're on the back side of the island. She doesn't like heights either, so this is messy. Where she's trapped in it's a puddle about as big as this room. It doesn't look like a puddle, but it's quicksand mud. I mean, it's not mud, it's not quicksand, it's mud, but it's acting like quicksand. She's up to her knees in it. We're digging her, and we're all stuck in it. It's not just her. I mean, we're all stuck in it. We thought we had to cross this trail, so she's stuck in it. We pull her out, and the Crocs somewhere in the mud, long gone. I mean, and she, at one point she says, we're on the back side of the island. The island's only 1 by 3 miles. It's not that big. And she goes, just leave me here. I'm like, Mom, it's not an option just to leave you here. Like, what, are we going to just bury you here?
yourself.
Right, save yourself. I mean, and God love Monhegan, the one thing you can't find there is a bathroom or water. It's the only drawbacks of the place. Taking you back to this, they found a spigot up on this lighthouse that was not well attended. So my mom and all of us washed off in front of this spigot because we were absolutely covered in mud. We did recover the Croc. I'm literally digging mud out of this hole by the armful on my hands and knees. And she made it out okay. She will never go back there with me. Never.
You'll never forget it either.
No. Yeah, right? So I grew up with my grandmother. She's got the very unique name, Wilhelmina. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that kind of a... Watts is a huge name from the mid-coast. You can't go up to Thomas in Maine and not see Watts plastered over stuff. So that's where my name comes from. And one of the things we used to do is go to the Union Fair. And my grandmother would give us $20 and we'd try to stretch it for the entire day while she watched the pullings. She loved to watch the ox pulls and the horse pulls. And that's because my grandfather had oxen teams when he was younger. But on that site, on the Union Fairgrounds site, is this wonderful Moxie Museum. And this was another stop on our trip for this, and I won't have a story for all these slides, but so we get there, it's 1,000,000 degrees outside. And there's a fair there. It's an antique fair. This wasn't like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with some of these antique fairs right now. They cost an arm and a leg to get into. And people line up out the door to go to them. This was a huge one. They were charging $30 to go to this fair, $50 if you wanted early entrance, a piece. So Jeannie and I were like, I just want to go see a Moxie bottle. Like, I don't want to pay for this. So we stood in line to get into this place, to get into the fairgrounds, and I said to the guy, I'm like, listen, this is a lot of money, and we're just going to this museum to check it off on our scavenger hunt list. It's all we want to do. And the guy was very kind, and he let us park. And he goes, go ahead and go park. So we ended up parking for free, which was nice. And then we went to the fair. No, we were good. The funny thing is, so we get there, we go to the door, it's not open. We're looking at our map. I'm like, come on. We called, we found numbers on the internet. We found numbers in the magazine. We were calling everybody to see if they could open this thing. Because even though my parents live in Thomaston, it was going to be a while before we could come back, and it was just a mess. Finally, we get these folks to respond to us. And they were like, oh, well, John and Beth are at the fair. They'll be right there. So sure enough, good old Maine, these two folks come in, they're retired folks, to open up their museum. They curate their own museum. And I learned, I can't remember where they're from, but I learned that these guys, retired teachers, just like, retired educators. So we had a blast talking with these two. And their museum is just amazing. These are like trucks these were like early food trucks that these things, they've somehow gotten into this building and created this museum. So that's the Moxie Museum. Union has I know Lisbon takes a lot of credit for the Moxie, but Union because one of the inventors of Moxie was from Union, I guess, not from, I don't know how Lisbon caught on to the Moxie craze. But I actually didn't know that the word Moxie, when you say somebody has Moxie, it comes from the soda, not the reverse. I always thought when somebody had Moxie, you know, it came from I thought the soda name came from that. That's not what happened. It's actually in reverse. Moxie is the reason the word Moxie exists today, which is kind of cool. Or so they told me, and I believed it. There you go. So, and I'm easily, you know, duped. No. So this is Jeannie and I at Cellar Door Winery. Cellar Door Winery, if you've not been up to, it's in Lincolnville Center. Most of us have been to Lincolnville before. We've driven up Route 1 and we've gone through Lincolnville and seen that lobster place. I had a short dinner there. But most of us been through Route 1 in Lincolnville. You know, past Camden, up north through Lincolnville. But not a lot of people have been through Lincolnville Center because it's kind of the willy wax, really. But if you weave your way around to there, you get to this beautiful winery. Most of the grapes from this winery come from away. They ship them in and they blend their own wines. The vintners there are amazing. And it wasn't always that way. They've come a long way since their opening. But actually in the back of this pavilion, you can see they've actually started to grow their own grapes. I don't think they'll ever become the predominant feature in their wines because they're such a Class A wine. I love this place. It's a beautiful old barn. If you've never, you know, if you've never been up there, again, it's very accessible. Anybody could go into this place. The wine tastings are free. It's extremely busy, I would say, in the summertime, but you know, during the days, during a weekday, they definitely are not. The people there are very kind. They love to know where you're from. And I feel like they almost react a little bit better when you tell them you're from around here. You know, you tell them from. But the story behind Cellar Door, which I really like, is you've got this beautiful old barn, this huge piece of land, and this idea and this symbol right here. Now, this symbol is their Cellar Door is actually the symbol you probably can't see from way back there, but if you came up close, it's carved in this door right here. This door was from the original barn. Now, when people were more of the ilk of traveling and vagabonding, you know, and kind of doing that more gypsy culture of, hey, do you have any work? Can I move on? Can I stay in your barn for the night? You know, that when our culture had more of that going on, it was typical for people who traveled like that, who wandered around doing that sort of work, to carve in symbols into doors on what they meant. You know, communicating with other people of the same ilk what you could expect from this place. Mm-hmm. And this one is about kindness and friendship. It's a safe place. You know, so that's where this symbol comes from. Whereas if the traveler wanted to indicate something else about a place, there were different symbols to indicate that. So that's why it's called Cellar Door Winery. It's because of this cellar door and because of this symbol. So in case you guys didn't know, that's where the name comes from. And so we had to go up there and try some wines, and the expectation of the scavenger hunt was to get a picture in front of the door. So that's why you see Jeannie and I in front of the door. Jeannie, I'll tell you briefly, is from Sanford, Maine. That's basically New Hampshire. Right, you know. It's so funny because she gets to like Midcoast Maine. She thinks she's in like Eastport. She thinks she's in Lubec. Like she thinks Midcoast Maine is the willy wax. I think Midcoast Maine is home. So I've actually sat on this deck overlooking this pond in this area and seen thunderstorms cruise across that hill, which is it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous spot. This TV is amazing, but I got a lot more pixely than I wanted to. I put this slide on here because the people we saw were amazing. They were so cool. We stopped at one of the things we had to do was stop at a hot dog cart in Brunswick. It took us like 5 visits to get to this hot dog cart. One day we went up, the hot dog cart's not there. It's like noon, high noon. I'm like, where is this thing? I look on Facebook. Well, they had their 100th anniversary the day before. They were giving out hot dogs for 10 cents a piece, and they didn't have, they were long sold out. So I was like, all right, well, we missed it that day. We went up another time, and we left. I mean, they were pulling the thing onto the truck and pulling out as we were pulling it. I'm like, oh, my goodness. So we just kept missing this lunch cart. And Jeannie and I have Maine State Music Theater tickets. We go to the matinee show, and so we're up to Brunswick all summer long, and we just couldn't run into this truck. Finally, we do. The people are sweet. We told them what we were doing. This is called Danny's Hot Dog Cart, and they were hilarious about it. They were really nice. They were excited that we were there, and the people are so kind. This is. And that's why I put them together. This is, I'm going to forget the name of the place now. It's skipping my mind. Beth's up in Machias. One of the things we had to do was go to Beth's in Machias. Now, if you don't know about Beth's, the place burned down a few years ago. They have hella good pie. Like, they really, really great pie. They're known for it. They also have pretty darn good fried seafood, too.
I've been there with a senior trip.
Yeah, if you're going to do a fall tour or something, it is.
Delicious chowder and
Yeah,
pie.
we had the chowder too. The fried seafood was kind of like typical, it wasn't like, but the chowder and the pie was insane. So we had the picture. We had to get a picture of this pie that survived the fire. This thing's got like 50,000 coats of lacquer, they say, on it, and that's why it survived. They say it's basically bulletproof, and it survived the fire. So you had to get a picture, a selfie in front of the pie. The owner was also here, so the owner jumped. So we asked the girls, said, "Hey, listen, do you mind jumping into this picture with us?" And like, "No, we'll go get the owner." So they ran out and they got the owner, and he came in and he had a picture with us. And a lot of the people in the first year had no idea they were on the. They didn't know their place of business was on. Maybe they were told, but they kind of forgot. So we really surprised a lot of people occasionally when we told them what we were doing. Other times, year two, it wasn't like that. Everybody kind of knew, but it was fun to see their reaction when we told them what we were up to. But the kindness of these particular groups of people were just phenomenal. Like I said, I'm from Mid-Coast Maine, and even in Mid-Coast Maine, there are places I haven't been. If you've never been down to South Bristol or Bristol, Maine, it's up off Route 1. All Maine's up off Route 1 for me. This tiny, sleepy little cove called Christmas Cove. And I love Camden, but you're going to put up with a lot of tourism when you go to Camden, and that's sometimes why we go there, because we want to go see that. And Rockland's getting pretty busy too. This is a cove that nobody knows about. It was really, really cool. So it's called Christmas Cove. It's in South Bristol, and we had to stop at this bar. Like, honest to God, I thought we were lost. We're heading down this road. We can barely get two cars side by side down it. And I'm like, this is just going to lead us to the water. And there's going to be nothing at the end of it. A lot like Port Clyde is. But when we get there, there's this restaurant called Coveside. And this restaurant's got all these nautical flags fill the bar area. And what you had to go do there is you had to go get a picture with the flags. And they encouraged you to have a dark and stormy while you were there. The dark and stormy is dark rum and ginger beer. It was phenomenal. I had two. My wife had something else. I didn't like them, but I loved them. But the people were like, "What are you guys doing here? What?" They thought they were pretty cool. And what about good old true Maine is there's this guy next to us who had sailed there from God knows where. I think somewhere down south. And the stories that were coming out of him were just phenomenal. So this is the parking lot at Coveside. I mean, goodness gracious. I mean, I'd like that to be my parking lot. And that's Christmas Cove at low tide. And the restaurant would be over here on your left, actually. So that's Coveside. Definitely worth a piece of Maine I'd never seen, and it was beautiful. So this gets to year two. So So I'm cruising right along. Year 2, so we finished this piece. We got our thing in the mail. This spring, Jeannie and I were like, you know what? We're doing this. We're doing all 40. We're going to get this whole scavenger hunt done. I wish I had good news for you. We failed. Now, I got a great excuse. You know, anytime you don't make it, you got a great excuse. I got good excuses. But we started off with a fire and a fury. We bought tickets and reservations, and we were going all over Maine, and we were doing all 40 things. We started our weekend, this was like April 15th. I think the magazine just came out. Let me see the date on that, actually. Is it the April or the May?
It's the May issue.
So it's the May, yeah, so it's May. It's that break in school, the long weekend in May. Let's go. And one of the things you had to do was go up to Moxie Falls. That wasn't on the food and booze part. That was on some of the hikes you have to do. So we went up to Moxie Falls. First of all, we stayed at the Forks Inn at Moxie Falls, dog-friendly inn. The woman there was a raft guide turned business owner turned, the vagabond culture of the Forks, Maine is wonderful. There was a guy there. This inn had a little bar in it, and I'm sitting there, and I'm learning about. I know a lot about rafting just from being I've rafted a bunch of times. And this guy was like, "Yeah, my wife. This is May. I mean, it was like 30 degrees that night." He goes, "My wife and I are staying in a tent down the road." I'm like, "Oh my Lord, you're staying in a tent?" He's like, "Yeah, we're gonna be raft guides." I'm like, "Great." So he goes away to fix a drink, and I say to the owner, we actually knew people in common from the amount of rafters that I know, and she says, I said, "Does he know he's gonna swim every rapid on that river?" He has no idea. I'm like, "That's fantastic." So he comes back, and I'm like, "Can't wait for you to swim that whole river." He's like, "I'm swimming the river?" I'm like, "Yes, every guide does." And he couldn't believe I knew that. He looks at the owner of this bar, and she's like, you could see him go, "Oh, shoot. Maybe I've done, all right." And then you could see him buck up. "That'll be right. We'll be fine." I have no idea. I almost want to go back next year to see how it went for this guy, because I'm sure I don't want to swim all those rapids. They're huge. So we ended up at Moxie Falls. I had no idea that, so first of all, high water going through there at this time of year because of the time, because it was big water running through. Where we stayed on the Forks, you could see the Penobscot the Kennebec running by, and the Dead was coming into it, the Dead River, because it was high water at that time. You could see the two colors of the river running down. It was going so quick that one side of the river was blue from the Kennebec, and the brown mix from the Dead was running side by side right in the same river. It was really, really neat. I'd never seen anything like it. When I should have had a video attached to this. The amount of water rushing through there was insane. It blew my mind. It is the biggest waterfall in Maine. It's a very decent sized waterfall. It was so cool. If I run late, you just cut me off. I'm almost done. This is the South Solon Meeting House. This was on the trip up to the Forks. It's this church that has been converted into a mural. And it goes through the different stories in the Bible through this mural all over the building. And it is I'm an art guy, like I said, phenomenally gorgeous. I think there was an art school up there in the 60s, roughly, and they're the ones who made sure all this art got into the building. And it was just a gorgeous location. The pews were these old box pews that were tiny, And so there's a picture of Jeannie and I. We had to get a picture somewhere. You can see that the ceilings were done up. I'm very passionate about our state. Obviously, you can hear me talk about it. But the doors are always unlocked at this place. You can always walk in. It's a really magical place. Like, we went in there, was nobody in there. It was just Jeannie and I running around this place, old wood floors. There was a Bible. Somebody had opened the Bible up at the pulpit to a verse. I wish I could remember what it was. And it connected it to some of the murals. And it was just a wonderfully safe place. It just had a really spiritual feeling to it. So that is the Solon Church. Again, that anybody can just walk into and check out. It's pretty neat. Oh, I had to enter. I'm like, what happened here? This is a great example of where Jeannie and I don't always know where to look when we're looking at our selfie camera. I'm looking over here somewhere. She's kind of looking over there. We're always like trying to make them better. So this place is called Scrummy Afters, and it's this place in Hollowell, up on the river, and it was right out of, I don't know if anybody have seen the Harry Potter movies, and some of the shops they show in those movies are just really whimsical and fancy and beautiful. This has that feeling. Scrummy Afters in Hollowell has this wonderful, intimate feeling. Now, they knew all about them being in the magazine because they had these so that you had to take this picture with these lollipops. That was their rule. They had them right at the register, so we just went up there and took a picture. But I think we spent a fortune in there on candy. It was a very, you buy it by the pound. They had chocolate. Oh, the turtles they had there were to die for. So that was Scrummy Afters.
Do you know why they named it that?
I don't. Do you? It's got this British. Scrummy is a British thing, and I knew the answer. If you had asked me the day I left that place, I knew, and now I can't. I know. Let you down there. Sorry. Scrumpy is? Oh, yeah. Scrummy Afters. You'll find a. I think Scrummy is a short term for scrumptious, there's a definite British story to it. This is Wolf Neck's Farm. This is one of my wife's favorite places in the world. We've camped here before. You had to get a picture with some of the animals. She loves. I could show you 25 photos of this place because she took 25 photos of this place. She loves the animals here. This was fun to walk into, and there were baby sheep, there were pigs, we had our nephews and nieces with us this day, so they were over the moon about the chicks that were there, and so we were having a really good time. There's also a great place to kayak near here too. So Wolf Neck's Farm it's obviously a place where people camp and a place of business, but it's also very open to the public, which was really nice about this place. So if you've never been down there, the barn's easy getting around in. They're doing a lot of renovations, so they're trying to even make it more, I think, open to the public. So that's Wolf Neck in Freeport. Again, notice there's a lot of mid-coast. So this is, again, what I didn't learn. This is the things you learn about Maine. Brunswick has the biggest, largest, coolest farmers market ever. I had no idea, none. Lived there, lived in the Mid-Coast all my life. Huge farmers market. They had everything from oysters for $1 a piece, which was a phenomenal price, to there was a woman of Middle Eastern descent that had like this nami bread. I'm going to get the name wrong. We ate our weight in that. I mean, we were starving that morning. I mean, there wasn't a lot of fruit there and vegetables because we were early in the year, but the flowers that were there and the foods that were there were to die for. I think I bought a piece of baklava that was that big for breakfast, and I ate the whole thing. So I know, not a great breakfast. I've been walking to work since.
Where do they have that farmer's market?
So it's a great, again, never been out to this place. It's at Crystal Spring Farm. And this farm is a land trust now with Brunswick and Topsom. And it's out on, I don't know if I put it on, I'll go a slide forward to see, no.
That's okay, I was just curious.
But it's out on, if you look up Crystal Spring Farm, it's out of town. It's not in the village. It's not anywhere, typically where I would think farmers markets to be. I believe it was every Saturday, 8:30 to 12:30 or 8:30 to noon. There's restrooms, there's parking, they had flaggers. It was like you've been to the Cumberland Fairgrounds before for one of their whether it's the craft fair, which is amazing, by the way, but it's that busy every time. Like they get,
Pleasant Hill Road,
that's it.
which Pleasant Hill
Road.
seems to be kind of 3/4 of the way between Freeport and Brunswick.
Yeah.
A little south of Brunswick.
I say that there were a lot of people there, and there were, but the parking was easy. I mean, the parking wasn't bad. They put you in a field, which is tough to navigate sometimes with walking, but they prioritized people who needed. They had some nice parking that was a little bit more level for people too, which I thought was very nice of them, because I was there with my parents and they needed that support. So this is the farmers market. Had a blast there. It was new to us, so we'll be back. So this is L Beans. You've all been there. One of the things you had to do with L Beans, they got that new fish tank in there. And there's Gene, with that trout, the trout place where you can see those fish right there. And you had to have a picture inside the bubble. This was supposed to be way more about the kids. Here I am looking like an idiot, making a fish face in there. I added this picture because I've got friends in Florida who think we're crazy up here in Maine. And he's like, and I was telling him about the Beans Boot truck. You've seen it before somewhere, I'm sure. And he's like, no. I'm like, no, seriously, it exists. And I've taken pictures from him on the highway before, and he's like, are you kidding me? In fact, he might have brought it up, like, is it true that there's a truck that's a bean boot? I said, sure is. So that day, this was sitting outside. This is a huge day for Scout. It was the day the Scouts were up there. And so I had my picture. I took that picture to send to him, so I thought I'd share that with you. Yeah, it was very fun. Back to the mid-coast. In Bath, this is the Maritime Museum in Bath. Is gorgeous. I see a lot of people nodding, so you've probably been there. I'm pretty sure if Bath Iron Works wasn't there, it wouldn't be there, because it is a gorgeous museum that it is a gem that nobody would know about, or truly I don't think even would exist there in most cases. But it's this wonderful museum. They just took possession of the Mary E. The Mary E was a schooner that was built in Bath in 1906. This boat has a crazy story. She was in she was worked out of Block Island for many years originally as a fishing truck, as a mail delivery boat, as a rum runner, some stories say, which is pretty cool. She was left to neglect on Block Island. She was bought and I think brought back to Bath and rehabbed, went back out into the world, ended up being a passenger ship in New York Harbor doing tourist stuff, ended in Camden for a long time doing tourist stuff up in Camden, Maine, and then was rehabbed again recently by the Maritime Museum, who took possession of her. And we got this was her maiden voyage. We had to be there on the maiden voyage day. That's what the scavenger hunt said to do. So this was her christening day, or rechristening day. So that was a gorgeous day. That's the Mary E. She's still up there. You can see her anytime.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Do you know the filers?
The Fallas?
Filers.
The Filers. Up in Midcoast? I don't know if I do.
Filer.
Filers.
Yeah.
Where they live on Beechwood Street?
Fish Company.
Oh, yes. Yes, thank you.
My
Yeah.
relatives.
Yes.
Yeah, I gotta go cross those streets.
Oh, all right. So, and I'm almost done. I'm sorry. I didn't realize we were going to take all this time. I'm almost done. Like, this ends pretty much. We had to go to the lobster boat races up in Rockland, so it brought me almost right back to home. Is that one of the places we went this summer was to see the lobster boat races in Rockland. Lobster boat races are. So this is the breakwater up in Rockland. This is the Rockland breakwater. Here's Jeannie on it. You can see some of the boats in the background. There was a schooner going by in this shot, but they were all here to see these lobster boats their racetrack was basically right down the breakwater, so they'd come right down here. Meow, really loud. Yes, this is right off the Samoset. The Samoset's like, yeah. It's a gorgeous walk. It's very rocky, and the rocks are uneven, so you got to be ready for that ground. But it is a beautiful walk, and it's a mile, it's a mile out. It's a beautiful breakwater. I went to the breakwater at Spring Point this weekend, and I'm like, it was 5 feet long. I'm like, this isn't a breakwater. Rockland's a breakwater.
So that's us in Rockland, kind of a home again. And I would close with this quick story. I told you that we didn't finish the 40. One of the reasons we didn't finish the 40 is because when we were looking at all the things we'd have to do, Jeannie and I bought a boat last year. We bought a pontoon boat, which we love, but we pay monthly on it. Right? So I couldn't justify being away from this thing. It's a beautiful pontoon boat. It lives on Sebago Lake in the summertime, and I just couldn't bear being away from it for the summer because we were paying for it, right? So if you're going to pay for it, you better use it. I don't have that kind of disposable income where I can just set it out there and smile at it. So we wanted to use it. One of the things we had to do for our picture was to go to Fry's Leap. So that's tying this part of the story together. We went to Fry's Leap, got our picture done for the scavenger hunt, but we went to more places than we did the first year, but we did not complete the components we needed to. Mostly because we looked at each other and went like, boat? Yeah, boat. So we spent a lot of time on Sebago this summer, Jeannie and I, and for two teachers who have a pretty busy year, we really loved the relaxation that gives. I always tell people there's something about a boat that just takes all that stress right out of you. And in your lives that you got to have stuff that does that, because if you don't, you might go, you're not going to last as long as you have. You just got to take care of yourself. And our pontoon boat definitely does that for her and I. So we didn't make it through we plan to do, I think, the food and booze next year. Not get so wound up to try to do all 40, and then that will help us stay on the lake as well. So I really appreciate the time. If you guys have any questions.
How many do you have left?
What's that?
In Thomaston, the Schessler?
The Schessler family. I think they live like